Edward James Corbett, better known as Jim Corbett, a name that does not need an introduction. Probably the most famous big game hunter ever, a prolific and gifted author whose tales of shikar have enthralled multiple generations of readers and continue to do so even today. In his later life, he was an avowed wildlife conservationist and fought hard to protect India's flora and fauna, a legacy that is preserved today in India's first Project Tiger Reserve, the Jim Corbett National Park in Uttarakhand. But today, we will not be talking about Corbett's hunting stories. Dark nights in Indian jungles are a perfect recipe for supernatural phenomena. And for sure, Corbett, who spent countless such nights chasing after the man-eating big cats, had his share of spine-tingling experiences, some of which he recounted in the pages of his books. One such experience took place on the night of 5th April 1929 when Corbett was on the hunt for the Tallades man-eater. He and his men were trekking through the Sharda Gorge en route to the Kala Agar and decided to take a break for the night. It had been a long, hard day's work, and Corbett was enjoying a smoke seated on the river bank when he noticed something odd on the other side. The far bank of the Sharda, which lay in Nepal, Corbett saw 3 lights suddenly appear together. Shortly after, 2 more lights appeared. Initially, Corbett considered them as the signal for the start of a forest fire. Soon, however, one of the lights moved downwards and merged with one of the earlier lights. A few more lights appeared within a very short time, and Corbett realized that he was not looking at a fire, but individual lights. He concluded that most likely a local shikari had by mistake left something during the day at that place and was probably now back there with some men and lights looking for his lost items. The explanation, however, did not entirely satisfy Corbett. The lack of any sound, human or otherwise, was something that kept nagging at the back of his mind. He asked his men, but even they didn't hear anything. Corbett went to sleep, much perplexed. Next morning, as soon as dawn broke and it was light, Corbett picked up his field glasses and scanned the far bank of the river very carefully. He found no trace of any forest fire or anything suggestive of human involvement. The area where he had seen the lights was, in Corbett's words,
a perpendicular rock where no human, unless suspended from above, could have possibly gone.
Later, Corbett heard an interesting explanation for this strange experience from one of his men, Gangaram. Gangaram told Corbett the story of a sadhu from ancient times who was said to have angered the goddess of Purnagiri. The vengeful deity, furious at the transgressions of the sadhu, hurled him down the gorge to a painful death. The locals believed that the lights were the penance of that unfortunate saint, and they were careful never to spend the night in the gorge. Corbett concluded that even if there was a spirit inhabiting the Sarada Gorge, it was not exactly vengeful, certainly not to him and his men. Corbett, however, had a far stranger and scarier experience during the hunt of his last man-eater, the Tigress of Thak, in 1938. Sheer terror of this beast had led the residents of Thak village to abandon their homes. The whole village was lying empty and desolate. Corbett decided to spend a night there, sitting over the carcass of a buffalo bait killed by the man-eater. It had been moonlight for 2 hours when a strange, unnatural sound greeted Corbett. He described it as
the despairing cry of a human being in mortal agony.
Corbett ruled it out as a hallucination because the cocker deer had suddenly stopped barking and a sambar deer had dashed off scared as soon as the sound had started. Next morning, Corbett was talking with the headman of the Thak village. He was inquiring from the headman about the most recent kill by the man-eater which had led to the abandonment of the village. The headman told Corbett that the unfortunate victim had kept on screaming as the big cat dragged him away up the hill. When Corbett asked him To replicate the scream, the headman did so. In Corbett's words,
It was the same, but a very modified rendering, as the screams I had heard last night.
since neither Corbett nor the headman could offer a logical explanation for the screams, they decided not to dwell further on the matter. But probably the strangest experience Corbett ever had was one he refused to talk about. While hunting his first man-eater, the Tigress of Champawat in 1907, Corbett spent a night at the Champawat Forest Bungalow. He referred to his experience that night in the bungalow only in the following lines.
I have a tale to tell of that bungalow, but I will not tell it here, for this is a book of jungle stories, and tales beyond laws of nature do not consort well with such stories.
So what happened to Corbett at Champawat Bungalow? It is through Morris Nestor, Corbett's nephew, that we get to know something more about this incident. One of Corbett's sister was later told by Bahadur Khan, Corbett's trusted servant, that he and the other men felt that Corbett was talking loudly to himself inside the room that night. After a while, the door of the room opened violently and out jumped Corbett, shirtless, covered in sweat and breathing heavily. Corbett simply told Bahadur and the men that he would prefer spending the night with them in their room and not return to his room. Corbett would spend another night at the Champawat Bungalow, but he would sleep in the veranda and not in his room, with his men setting up a large fire outside in the courtyard to ward off the man-eater. Incidentally, on the first night, the local Tehsildar was supposed to stay at the bungalow with him. But just as evening was setting in, the Tehsildar took Corbett's leave. The latter was horrified at the thought of this unarmed man traveling long distance at night through man-eater infested territory. But no amount of pleading or protestation could change that official's mind. Thankfully, we know he had reached his destination safely. So what happened to Corbett at the Champawat Bungalow? Did the Tehsildar's strange behavior induce a panic attack in a body and mind fatigued by the constant chase of a deadly animal? Does ball lightning explain the strange lights Corbett saw at Sarada Gorge? And what about the eerie scream in a deserted village? Maybe it is futile to try and extend a logical explanation to these incidents. After all, as the great bard wrote, there are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are even dreamt of in your philosophy.
If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications for more deep dives into stories that matter.